Today on the show, we have Matt Kuchar, he's the founder of Showami, which is an on-demand service that hires agents to do your showings when you're not available without having to give up any part of your commission. But first, let me tell you about Matt. Matt has been a licensed real estate broker since 2000. He has also been responsible for over 700 residential real estate transactions. He's also managed offices and real estate teams throughout his years and has his GRI certification. Let me tell you about a few of his accomplishments. He was named Keller Williams Executive's top producing agent of 2011. He's also been listed in the top 100 agents in Colorado by volume in 2015, and he founded Showami in 2016. Now, please, everyone listening, go visit Showami's online at their website, showami.com. And I'm going to spell that. It's Showami. Again, Showami.com to learn more about their agent showing service. And we're going to be talking about it today anyway. But Matt, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
We are really excited to have you. Matt and I were talking just beforehand about, sort of what we'd be discussing today. And I just love people that come along and build a better mousetrap. And I will just, before we get to your whole story, I just want to, the reason I got so excited is here at our company, we have just under 800 agents here in Chicago, which sounds like a lot. And I guess it is technically, but we run into this exact issue all the time, which is, hey, I'm going out of town. Can one of the other agents do a showing? And I'll give them, X amount of dollars to do that. And we actually do all of that we have like a private Facebook group for our brokers, but you guys have a whole platform built to exactly solve this exact issue. So I'm super excited to talk about that because we're going to use it because we need it for our company as well. But before we get to that, Matt, tell us a little bit about, you've been in the business now 22 years or 21 or 22 years. I'd love to hear about how you got started and why real estate and then why Showami, and just tell us your story.
Sure. I like to tell people I got into real estate by cheating on a test. Um, my my father-in-law was selling manufactured homes for this big conglomerate, and so he got me this interview. So I go to this office, and they give you this personality test, right? That says, you know, all these different questions, and I'm in this room all by myself, no one in me, and I start answering the questions, and I look over one table over, and I see this, I don't know, what do you call it, the guide, the thing they score the sheet on. So I look around to the right, to the left, no one's in there. So, again, I'm like 19 years old, so please forgive me. This is not who I am today. But I grabbed that thing, I stuck it underneath my piece of paper, and on every one I scored as high as I could possibly score, stuff it back under, did my interview and went home. And when I got back to my home, at that time they had, the answering machines, and there was like, please give us a call, So
They're like, oh my God, this is the most amazing candidate we've ever. We got to hire this guy.
The guy did. That's what he said. He's like, no one has ever scored so high on this test. And so we've got to give you the job. And of course, my father-in-law was already working for the company, so I kind of had an in. But that's how I launched my real estate career. I cheated on a test.
I love it. I love that. And so, back in the early 2000s, when you started, it was kind of a best of times and then kind of a worst of times scenario. I mean, the market's just about to crash in 2000, right? So,
yep.
And then of course, and then there was like interest only loans. And so then people started buying places like crazy. And so talk a little bit about that. What was it like to start back in 2000?
Oh, I mean, we were using classified ads. So the first thing that I did was and you could get them for like $5. So you could, you could do a bunch of classified ads, and I would borrow everybody's listings. Hey, can I tell people about your home? So I just started marketing right from the get-go, and people would call me, and I'd go out, and they're like, you're a real estate agent? You're like 19 years old, But, that's kind of how I got started. And eventually it just kind of snowballed. And you're talking about the at that time how the market was totally changing. We had not gotten into short sales yet. The market was just going up like 35% a year. We're like, oh my gosh, I'd never seen anything but real estate appreciate. I didn't know it could go down, right? It only goes in one direction. You buy real estate, it goes up in value. And I remember, that was kind of what it was like. It was this, and it was Florida, so it was retirement. A lot of people were coming down here, so yeah, it was a great time.
And so classified ads, wow, that's, but that's really, people are doing versions of that today with social media. I mean, that was the social media in a sense,
Yeah.
for back then, and people did, peruse the classifieds, and so that makes sense. It's so funny how, then sort of Craigslist took that and put it online, and I feel like I must be old, because now I have to sell a couple pieces of furniture because I just replaced some things, and I said, well, I guess I'll put it on Facebook. And my girlfriend's like, nobody looks at Facebook, So I said, well,
Right.
we'll put it on there anyway. She's like, we can put it on, but you won't. She's like, we have to go to Facebook Marketplace. It's just funny how things shift. And now agents, of course, are promoting all their stuff on Facebook Marketplace as well, and everywhere else online.
Yep.
But let's really, I want to really dive into this company that you created, Showami, because I think what you guys are doing is really, really important and such a cool service. And not just because it's convenient and it's easy and it works, but because I think it helps agents really shift their thought process about, how do I, and I know this is a part of the reason why you're so passionate about it, is that it really helps people to think about this more as a business owner. This is my real estate business, and I need to work in the business, but I also need to work on the business. And I think this is a really cool solution to working on your business, to maybe give you some more time that realtors are always complaining about not having enough of. So tell us about what Showami is.
Yeah, so maybe I could start by telling you how I came up with the idea.
Yeah.
So I was a busy agent in Denver, doing about 60 to 70 deals a year, and I was doing them on myself. Like at one point I had a big team, but I also felt responsible for all of those members of the team, right? I'm making sure that they all have they're supporting their families, and I actually grew it to the point where I wasn't making any money. So eventually, I let everybody go, went down to be a single agent with a transaction coordinator, and just started to automate as much as I could. But at that point, I was also burned out, 60 to 70 deals a
Oh,
year.
it's a
So
lot.
I'm like, ugh. So I'd take a day and I'd go skiing, right? And me and my buddy Ed, we're up on the slopes, and I literally was about to get on the gondola, and a past client called and says, "Hey, this home in this neighborhood downtown just came available. We got to go see it." I'm like, really? I'm out on the slopes. And they're like, I'm like, here, let me call some agents. I'll get somebody to show you the home. So I did what any other agent would do. I was at Keller Williams at the time, and I started calling all my fellow Keller Williams agents and texting and stuff like that.
Sure.
And it took about half hour, 45 minutes, and Laura finally kind of said, "Hey, I could do it." And it was a big ask, right? It was 5 o'clock on a Friday. Who wants to
Yeah.
go to downtown Denver at 5 o'clock on a Friday? You're looking at an hour one way, and which is normally a half an hour drive. So anyway, she agrees, but then we had this awkward conversation, like, am I paying you? Are we
Right.
trading off? Are we sharing the client, or do I get a part of the commission? What if they buy? What if they don't? I mean, it was like, and so I was like, hey, why don't I just give you $100? And she's like, great, no problem. And I would do the same thing for her. If it were in Highlands Ranch, we wouldn't have even charged each other. So anyway, I was having a beer with Ed, and I'm like, we got to come up with a better way. So you always hear about those stories of the people in the bar with a napkin. We were literally in a bar with a napkin, drawing the Uber for real estate, and hired a developer. And it's like anything, when you start something, you're like, this is the greatest idea, like it's the new sliced bread, and you launch it and nothing happens, right? Nobody uses it. They're all like, "Oh, that's a good idea. I'm not really sure I get it." And then, it just slowly trickled. Pretty soon we were 5 transactions a month, and we got to 20, and we're like, "Oh, we're rock stars," you know. And but it took forever to grow until like RE Colorado, which was the big MLS, picked us up and they said, hey, we'll promote you. So like
Wow.
within a day, we had 150 new agents that were on. And then over time, people started telling each other, and the word of mouth really spread. And now we're up to over 20,000 agents throughout the United States, and we're doing thousands of transactions a month.
It's incredible. And it's really something that every one of our listeners could use and probably have been in a situation where they either have to tell the client, sorry, can't do it, because maybe they don't have a network like you had, with your, maybe they're new to maybe they're new and they go, well, I'll call my managing broker, and the managing broker's out because it's Friday at
Yeah.
5 o'clock, and just not available. And they're like, I don't even know who to call. And then they freak out, and they have to tell their clients, sorry, we'll have to do it on another time. And especially in this market right now, those minutes are real precious
Oh, they
with
miss
buyers.
out on one, they're mad. Like, hey, we didn't
Yeah,
get in there and that thing went pending. You're
yeah,
screwed. They're like, oh, that's not good, you know.
yeah,
And I think that it's something we had always done, right? Agents have always helped each other out when they were unavailable. I've done this for hundreds of other agents, and they've done it for me. But it's often inefficient, right? There's
yeah.
no clear terms
Super
like,
inefficient.
am I going to get paid? Am I not going to get paid? Are we sharing the community? And it's never equal, right? There's
Right.
always one guy who does more showings than the other guy, who's always needs the help. It's the nature of the business. That's how it works. And, asking somebody who's in one area of town to go to a different area of town, again, it would be better to have somebody in downtown Denver show that home than my guy that was out in Highlands Ranch. It just was. So there's a lot of efficiencies, and also it's just faster, easier, it's more reliable, So
Yeah, and let's talk about what Showami is. So you had called it just a few minutes ago the Uber of real estate, and I hadn't thought of that, and it's absolutely like a perfect analogy, because essentially what it is a live network of agents who say, "Hey, I'm free, I can do this,"
yep.
or maybe I'll take a look and see if I'm available at that time. But people who say, "I want to help out, I'm willing to do it for a fixed price." But tell me more about what Showami actually is.
Yeah, sure. I'll kind of tell you how it works. So, at this point, it's just real estate agents. It's a real estate agent to real estate agent, right? And you would go on, create a profile. We verify that you're actively licensed. And then you could enter in the date, time, location of the home that you need, showing the buyer name. And then that goes out to those agents in that area. And the first one to pick it up, much like Uber, is the one who gets it. So, like the average pickup time is 2 minutes.
That's
So
pretty
it's like,
efficient.
yeah, like you're gonna know really quickly, and that's an average. The one in the major metro areas, they get picked up in a minute or less. In the more rural areas where you've got maybe fewer agents, it's a little bit more of a challenge to get them picked up, or it's not as fast as it is. But
Same
that's how it
same thing
works.
with Uber in rural areas. Yeah,
Yep.
I think we all can understand. Yeah, and also as your user base continues to grow, that will those times will come down even in those rural areas. Yeah.
Yep. So then that agent gets the information, and you have their number and they have yours, and either they will schedule the showing. There's a box in there that says, "I already have the code. Here's the information. Go show the home." Or if you need them to show it, there's a box that you check, and they will actually go schedule the showing through Showing Time or the listing agent, whatever. And then there's a confirmation. So you schedule it, somebody accepts it, then they confirm it once we got permission from the seller to show. They meet the client out there, show the home. Um, you then have the option to give them a tip. You can write reviews. We do peer reviews, peer to peer. And that agent gets paid to show the home, and you just paid that money, but they do a procuring cause waiver. So, and they agree not to steal the client or solicit them or talk to the buyer after the showing is over with. And that's kind of how it works. And what happens is once you start doing this a few times, you build up the people you trust and right? So
Yeah.
you can ask for your preferred agent over and over again, and they build these relationships. Real estate's a relationship business, and this just kind of facilitates that.
It sure does. And it also really like this idea of building relationships with some of these, we'll call them, almost gig economy sort of work. And by the way, gig economy stuff is so prevalent right now in our sort of business world because everything's global. And what I mean by that is I now have an assistant who isn't like a traditional assistant, but she's helping me with my daily to-dos, personal and work. And I pay her hourly. She lives in the Philippines, and she manages that part of my business, and I pay her, a specific amount of money for that. And it's very reasonable. And the service you offer is similar, where it's like, hey, there's this one thing that either I can't do because I'm on the slopes and about to hit a black diamond or something, or I just don't, it doesn't work with my schedule right now, or I'm just busy, or I just don't want to do it. And I think I'm curious on what your thoughts are about the client experience. So I imagine, I think we understand how the app works. You go on, say, I need a showing. People, people bid for that, or not bid for that, but they say they're available. You maybe look at reviews if you don't know the people, see who you like. Obviously, you just send it over to them. What do you recommend as far as making sure the customer knows, or telling the agent who should be doing the showing, or who can't do the showing, to how should they be communicating with their client? Just say, hey, by the way, I've got someone else helping out on this one.
Yeah, so it's a good you got to hand off to some extent, and you just say, "Look, I have a team of showing agents that
Yep,
occasionally it's part of your interview process right from the get-go with your clients,
it's
Hey,
great.
I instead of it going like I'm not always going to be there, you don't always get me, you got to say, I have invested in a team of showing agents that when I'm not available, we're still going to get you in the home when you want to on your schedule. And, if I'm not available, they're going to do it on my behalf. So they're just an extension of you to some extent, just to open the door. And,
I love saying that up front too. That's such a smart idea, because then you're not really blindsiding the customer with
yeah,
it. That's such a smart thing, is to say at the beginning, hey, especially if everyone who's listening, our listeners are thinking, well, I do most of my showing, so that would be a
right.
great conversation to have. Say, hey, great, I'm likely going to be available for most of our showings, but there may be times where I have other obligations, and I guarantee I have a team in place. I'm gonna, make sure that you get in, like you said, to the property, and that way, when that comes up, you could just make a quick call
Yep.
to the client. Oh, I love that. And also the peer-to-peer review is really important. And this comes up too a lot with referrals, right? So let's say you have a client that's retiring to another. In your case, you're down in Fort Myers, Florida right now, and of course a lot of people go down there and retire. And it would certainly would behoove anyone who has customers who retire down to Florida to start thinking about, oh, where do my clients move to and retire to, and then I should probably build some relationships with those agents, and in that area. And you're just doing it in a more localized sort of way. And I bet it also probably helps establish those relationships with other agents. And you might find out that the person who did the showing for you for this nominal price might be a really good agent. And also you could start develop like actual referrals. I bet that happens all the time on your system.
It does. It does. And that's in development is a referral network,
I love
so
it.
that you can look at their ratings, you can kind of, hey, I'd love to refer to this person. But let me give you another scenario that I didn't even, it's funny, you create something and you don't think of all the uses
Yeah.
up front. And one was in Denver. I would, I'd work anything in the Denver metro area, right? But Fort Collins or Colorado Springs they were about an hour and 15 minutes away, and I would consistently get referrals to those areas. Well, now instead of referring them, I just Showami it. They're in my state. I can still do
Ah,
everything, and I just pay for the fee, the showing fee, 39, 44, $49 a piece, and I write the contract, I do everything. And we all have the tools, right? You could do the
right.
market analysis. It's going to get appraised anyway. You've got your inspectors, you've got
Wow.
everything. Why refer that out? Keep it.
Boy, it's funny you said that didn't occur to you when you were building it. That didn't occur to me until you just said it either, and that is absolutely true. So what Matt just said is quite profound, which is instead of thinking, well, I don't service that area or it's too far for me to travel, but it's still within my, my local market or my close enough market, I can still do everything. I just don't want to drive an hour and a half each way, or I don't, it's just not really I don't really know those neighborhoods as well. So it's probably better to have someone who can actually navigate those neighborhoods. And probably you could even schedule multiple showings with either that same person or your team if there's other people. And why, that is so smart. And then you're not paying that referral fee. So
Well, it's like
I
that guy. Who was it that was on your podcast a couple of weeks ago that he never leaves his house and he sells like all these homes. I was listening. I'm like, I like that guy. He's pretty smart, you know.
yeah, so what he's referring to is an agent that is licensed in Texas and sort of figured out, like, thinking about this from a business owner perspective, which is exactly how Matt is encouraging everyone to think about their real estate business, which of course it is a business, so you should think of it that way. And this guy said, I'm moving to Colorado because I like to ski and hike and do fun things, and there's not as much of that in Texas as there is in Colorado. And so he said, how could I continue to do my Texas business? I'm not even sure if he's licensed in Colorado. That's the funny part. And because he's like, I never want to leave my house. Other than to go do these fun things. And so he essentially is doing exactly what Matt has mentioned, which is to say that he doesn't even live in his local market anymore. He does Zoom meetings to have first appointment meetings, which everyone's already used to doing by now, with certainly with how COVID has made us more webinar friendly. But now he just has a team of people in Texas that does everything for him. And I can't remember if he pays them a nominal fee or how it all works, but it's basically the same idea. And so that's a really smart play. Let's talk about, you mentioned the cost. So how does it work? Just to real quickly kind of explain how that works for our audience.
Yeah, so the average showing is $44. And of that, Showami keeps 16 and pays out 28. So our business model is we make a little bit of money on every transaction. We don't charge setup fees. We're not charging annual fees. It's just a pay as you go, get paid as you show type thing. And so the showing agent, you know, one of the things that the agents have realized is that there's more than just the payment, right? They get showing experience. They build a network of agents. A lot of them will go out and while they're showing the homes, it's not their client necessarily, and they don't show the client, but they take a picture of themselves to put on Instagram. Hey, out showing homes today, out,
Oh, that's another good point.
and so they're sitting there,
It looks like they're busy.
looking busy for a new agent who doesn't have a lot of clients or things might be a little bit slower. The more you get out there and are in your market, you're learning your market, you're telling people you're
Yeah.
out in the market. I'm in real estate. The more successful you're going to be.
And
There's
and
nothing
I'm
I
going to pause
love.
you for a second. You're
Go,
also going to
go.
be making money as you're doing it,
Yes.
right? So it's not going to make you rich, but hey, at least you're getting out and you're doing. I mean, I guess if you do enough of them, it could. But this idea of, I'm getting, normally what people do is they join a team and say, can I please do some of your showings? They do it totally for free. there's
Yep.
there's no payment usually in there, but the experience is worth it.
Yep.
So what Matt is saying is, we'll give you the experience and we'll also throw a few bucks your way, and to make it pay for the gas and your time. And you just said, again, this idea of being able to show, if you are promoting yourself on Instagram, Facebook, wherever, you now have some cool video or pictures to take, and again, appear that but beyond just appearances, you are actually learning about how to do showings. Boy, that I love that. How often do you think I mean, assuming it's an agent to an agent that maybe just aren't familiar with each other, the agent who needs the showing is just looking maybe at reviews and says, hey, that person looks great. I don't know them personally. How often are they communicating? How often does it happen where that person says, hey, just so you know, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this client, just so you have a little bit of an understanding? I imagine that happens quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And they can message through the app through, so we have you can send your messages through it, or a lot of them just pick up the phone and call. The most successful transactions and showings are the ones where the buyer's agent and the showing agent are in great communication.
Yeah.
It doesn't really work to just click it and forget it.
Yeah.
You got to be able to communicate. You got to communicate with your client, communicate with the showing agent, even the listing agent. Hey, my person was there, and Sally showed it for me. Just be a professional. It's as simple as that, for sure.
Yeah, it's such a cool service. Actually, I am going to pause for just a quick moment to talk about our episode sponsor, and then I want to talk to Matt more about how we can think about treating this like a business and how this frees up time. Because there's so many inefficiencies in this business where we're really transactional. I mean, it's we know we're transactional. We're trading hours for dollars, and this really helps create an additional stream of income, for somebody who's starting out, but also frees up that time for the person who's like, oh my God, I'm like, you were doing 60 to 70 deals a year, which is incredible, but also, sacrificing a lot of your free time. But before we get to that, I want to pause for a moment, talk about our sponsor, our awesome sponsor that we love so much, Follow Up Boss. After interviewing hundreds of top realtors in the country for this podcast, you know what CRM is used more than any other by our guests, or at least the ones that they tell me, it of course is Follow Up Boss. And let's face it, following up is the key to taking your business to the next level. Follow Up Boss will help drive more leads to you in less time with less effort. Don't take my word for it. Robert Slack, who runs the #1 real estate team in the United States, uses Follow Up Boss. And he's built a $1.5 billion business in just 6 years. Follow Up Boss integrates with over 250 different systems. So you can keep your current tools, you can keep your current lead sources. They have 7-day-a-week support, so you'll get the help you need when you need it. And get this, Follow Up Boss is so sure you're going to love their CRM that for a limited time, they're offering Keeping It Real listeners a 30-day free trial. That's twice as much time as they give everyone else. And oh yeah, no credit card required, but only if you use the special link, which is followupboss.com/real. That's followupboss.com/real for your free 30-day trial. Follow up like a boss with Follow Up Boss. Matt, let's talk about just the idea of where, how technology has really changed, over the last 21 years, and sort of where you see it heading, to help make, these kind of things efficient. You're talking about, adding a referral option to
Yep.
Showami as well. So obviously you see that as something that will be more and more important. I imagine, as we've seen with the COVID crisis, a lot of people are still working remotely. A lot of them are now, realizing I can work wherever I want to. Maybe I'll move. And now that agent to agent sort of referral network is probably more important than it's ever been.
Yep. I think one of the biggest things that we've seen grow both on our platform and just in general are virtual showings.
Yeah.
The two reasons. One is, well, more than two. One is there's a certain urgency, right? So I could even, if I can't be there, what we're seeing even on Shawami is agents hiring other agents to go out to do a virtual showing. So now what they're doing is
Interesting.
they're walking through with their video camera, and they've got both the agent and the buyer on the phone, and they're just kind of zooming through and they're telling them what to do. So I think virtual showings, and think about the reasons. The urgency is one. We're seeing a lot of people transitioning from different areas. If I'm in California and I'm looking for a home in Chicago, I might not be in Chicago. I have
Right.
to look at this thing virtually, and people are not afraid to write an offer, buy a home without physically going into the home anymore. It's a commonplace. When I first got into real estate, I remember I had a guy from Hawaii call me and say, "Hey, and remember how you would send pictures through email? I'm over
Sure.
there taking pictures and I'm emailing them, like, so people bought homes. They've always bought homes without physically seeing them. And this guy's, came back, loved my home. It's on the water. It was great. Now that's commonplace. You know, so and there's also the people, because of COVID, they're afraid to meet in person. They would rather you be virtual. So I think that's one area of technology. And I'll kind of go through this. I mean, if you think about showing time, I was around when showing time kind of got started. Before showing time, every agent, either called their listing and said, "Hey, Sally's going to come see the home tomorrow at 3. Is that okay?" Or they had somebody in their office that was doing it. And I
Right.
can remember the fear at that time. Well, if I don't call my client, I'm going to lose connection, right? They're not going to like me anymore. Or they're going to think I'm lazy. But now we don't, none of us call our clients and go, "Hey, you got a showing at 3 o'clock." I mean, unless you got, I mean, I won't say nobody, but it's rare. We've
Right.
come up with an automated way to do it. When I first got into the business, only teams had TCs or transaction coordinators, right?
Right.
The bigger, super busy agents, and they would take care of 4 or 5 different agents. But now, like, I couldn't imagine doing a transaction without a transaction coordinator. When my business used to be like this, it was I would sell 4 or 5 homes in a month, 6 homes, and then the next month it would crash because I'm trying to close those things.
Right. You're
I don't.
chasing signatures, dealing
Yeah,
with, yeah, all of that.
you don't, it's inefficient. So now you can hire a transaction coordinator and they take that stuff so you can keep marketing, you can keep networking, doing the things that you like to do, the parts of your business that are effective, and you've offloaded that. I mean, how many of us take our own professional photos?
Nobody.
Almost nobody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything is kind of segmented out. Inspections, all of that stuff. That's one of the other things that we're looking at is even having agents. Some companies are starting to. There's a company called Inspectify. I don't. They're
Yeah.
relatively new,
Hmm.
but they're using agents to get the access to the homes for the inspector. You know,
Makes sense.
it makes sense. What is that the best use of your time to go sit there at a house and in fact, I was talking with an agent today who said their broker told them they are not to be at the inspection because the liability. You could say something that could get us into trouble.
Ah, it's
I
smart. Makes
that was
sense.
that was their broker. But
But I
again,
understand that philosophy is not unsound. Yeah.
yep, yep. So, in open houses, we're working on an open house to where you could hire an agent to do an open house, so you
Yep.
don't have to necessarily be there. I just think there's the business is becoming more and more segmented,
Yeah.
right? And we can take the bits and pieces that we like and work to our strengths, and the parts that we're not necessarily good at or are inefficient, we have other people do that for us.
Well, I'm just thinking too, back to what you said. I mean, everything you said I loved, but I was really thinking about from a customer perspective, how great it would have been for me. Now, I'm a broker. I don't practice real estate myself, but I represented myself on a transaction recently, and I just got very lucky with the first place I saw that I purchased a place. It just happened to be the right place, so I got very, very lucky. But I would have been, even though I should be excited to go see 20 homes and I would have been like, oh my God, I don't have time. I don't want to do that. My first thought is go to the virtual, or go to the, take a look at the photos, look at the video, see if there is a Matterport or something where I can, do a little video tour. But I just thought, how awesome would that be? I would think most, and I don't know, again, I don't have any data to back this up, but I would think a good percentage of the public, because you talked about doing virtual showings. I mean, I'm thinking if I'm an agent and I'm working with buyers and I can hire somebody for, under $50, let's say, or $50 at most, to another agent to go do a virtual showing and save my client the time to say, hey, I want you to just take a quick look. Maybe they schedule 5 of those. So what'd that be, like $250? Think about what your time is worth per hour. And that might think, God, $250, I'm already, having to spend other money for other. It's like, that's a good use of money, in my opinion. And people love looking at virtual tours. And so the idea that they're going to be doing it live, via FaceTime or Zoom, they go in, they're going to know within 5 minutes, you've saved them time,
Yep,
and they're going to go, hey, I do want to go see that. In that case, the agent goes, great, I'll get you back to your agent. He'll take care of it,
yep.
or maybe that person will do the real showing later, whatever. Um, I wonder how, I bet you have some agents who use your platform to just schedule a bunch of virtual showings and say, let me know. And it's so worth it, to spend that money, just like it's worth it to spend a few $100s on professional photography. Sure, you could do it yourself and maybe you're good at it, but it's certainly going to take you an hour or two, and then you have to edit photos, and maybe it's, or a transaction coordinator that's, I don't know, $300-400. Well, gosh, I would sure not like to have to chase, that kind of stuff, chase paperwork. So you're really onto something huge. And you've been around for some time. And I love the fact that it's gaining momentum and steam. I'm a big fan of this platform. So I do want to ask, because I always forget to do this. We always ask our guests to, send us some like interesting stories they've had in real estate that are kind of unrelated to what we're talking about, but just to sort of break up and have some fun. You got to tell me the story, and I know this is kind of a long story, but it's a good one. I want to hear about the sort of the fraudulent scenario that you
Oh
had a
man.
client. This is an amazing story. Please share it if you're willing to.
Sure, sure. So, I was I was doing a lot of advertising in Florida, and the lady who was selling me the advertising came to me one day and said, "Hey, I've got 3 homes for you to sell." I'm like, "Oh,
Awesome phone
great.
call to
Yeah,
get, by the
awesome."
way.
She's like, "The only thing is they're underwater." I'm like, "Okay." She's like, "Yeah, I just bought them." And she kind of told me the story that this 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 guy had come to her as a mortgage broker investor, and he found 6 for sale by owners. He basically sold her this package where she bought all 6 homes, and he padded in the down payment. This was back when we had no money down and stuff like that. He
Interest
fished
only
them to
loans. Yeah.
yeah, he fished them to 6 different lenders. He had the closing scheduled between Christmas and New Year's. So there wasn't going to be any, big oversight or upper level management really watching these things. So what this lady had done is, she got kind of caught up, what I thought she got caught up in the scam. And so he in each one, I was able to look at him later. Let me tell you what he had promised her. I'll manage these. I'm going to put renters in them. You're going to make lots of money and all this stuff. And so she closed down all 6 of them during that time.
And he
And
repped both sides of the deal
he repped
on
both
each one.
sides of the deal. No other real estate agents were involved at all. They were for
Oh
sale
my
by owner,
gosh.
and it
Oh my
was, this lady, right? So totally nobody knew what this guy was doing. Then what he does is he gets renters in there, gets their security deposits, they start paying rent. He never pays the mortgage or does anything. He keeps all of the money, keeps the rent, keeps their security deposits, and 6 months later, he basically skips out of town, and all of a sudden, she never made a single payment, and they're all
Oh,
foreclosing on her. So
oh.
I felt bad for the girl. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. You totally got scammed and all this stuff. And so we were able to short sale 3 of them, and the other 3 ended up getting foreclosed. Dude, like a year later, I see her picture in the newspaper where she had been arrested for fraud. She was part of the deal the whole time. I mean, I was hook, line, and sinker thinking like I'm helping this poor lady out and and all this stuff. She was part of it.
Wow, that's, yeah. They were in cahoots. But there's one part that Matt didn't mention, but he'd written us to it. I just want to mention this. This is even crazier. So sold her 6 homes. Matt figured out, because he was a mortgage broker and he was representing the real estate transaction on both sides. It was about $60,000 of commission on each sale.
On every single one. He had fees, the mortgage was maxed, the real estate commissions were like 15%. I mean,
Oh my
it was
gosh, that is,
insane.
wow. And
He
and
just
since she
totally
was
padded
interest
it.
only, it probably, she wasn't paying that. Well, she was in on it, I guess, to some degree as well. But that is, oh my gosh, that is an unbelievable story.
Yep.
Uh, well, those hopefully those days are long over. And what's great is, I guess, not great, but what's sort of smart about it is he did it between Christmas and New Year, where there isn't
Yep.
as much oversight, and he did it with what, 6 different lenders, so
Six
that they
different
were
lenders.
they didn't know what was going on at the other.
Nope. And none of the sellers knew each other, right? They're all different sellers. The only the buyer was one buyer, right? And that's probably what kicked off the FBI, that she was in on it, it's like, okay. But I mean, there was a time when you could buy 5 homes down here for $5,000. Put a
Sure.
$1,000 down on each one, and you'd own $1 million worth of real estate. That's why it crashed in 2006. It was
Yeah.
insane.
So she ended up, did they ever catch him? And then did she
Oh yeah.
ever end up going to, okay, they caught
She
him
went to
too.
jail. I don't think she got as much time as he did. He went to like big boy prison.
Yeah,
But
I would
I
imagine.
think she just got like a year or something like that and off on probation in 6 months. But yeah, I saw that and I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, I had no idea. I'm just helping this lady short sale some homes, but it was mortgage fraud and at a big scale. He had done this not only in Fort Myers, but he had done it in Tampa.
Oh,
There were like
sure.
4 or 5 other places. So he banked a couple $1 million, but in the end
Wow.
he paid for it.
Yeah, if
Yep.
you're gonna run that kind of scam, I think you got to like just leave the country,
Yeah.
change your identity, and
Yep.
never say, basically say goodbye to your family and say, I'm just gonna live somewhere in a foreign country that you'll never know where. And but that is an unbelievable story. Well, I'm glad that didn't in any way reflect on you, of
Yeah.
course, because you wouldn't have known anything. And it's funny too because agents do get those kind of scenarios happen where all of a sudden like the other agent will run off with the earnest money, or I mean, it happens and it's so bizarre. And you think, gosh, I mean, maybe with this guy, you sort of understand, well, he banked a couple $1 million, I guess, not a bad score if you're a thief.
Yep.
But if you're just, pulling 10 grand out of someone's, earnest money and running away, it's like, that seems like a really bad decision for a little
Yeah.
bit of money. Um, but yeah, back to Showami. Not to end on such a such a goofy note, but Showami is such a cool service. So for anyone out there who's listening, who maybe wants some more experience doing showings and make a few dollars along the way, like this is a great opportunity. And that just gave you a bunch of good reasons to sign up. And the money, of course, is nice, but also just being able to get experience and also be able to create content for social media and just learn how to talk to people and learn how to listen to them, especially as they're going through. And I think it is such a great opportunity. So if there are agents that want to either sign up to be the shower or the person who wants to hire these kind of agents, where do they go? Just showami.com, or they can download also the app on the App Store, the Apple App Store, as well as Google Play.
Yep, it's on all three. And we have a lot of agents who do both. That,
Yeah, sure.
sometimes they need help, sometimes they help others. It's I mean, that's how I am. Like I still will dabble and do a couple of deals with friends and relatives and people at church, but that's what I do. I'll still pick up a showing because I want to experience what everybody else is going through, right? I want to know the glitches, I want to know the bugs, and but no, it's been wonderful. The growth has been incredible, and so we're really really encouraged. And it's mostly word of mouth. I mean, we do a little bit of advertising, but you know, it's mostly one agent going like, "Hey, why are you posting this on our Facebook page? What? Just go to
Yeah.
Showami, you know."
Yeah, it's really great. And I encourage all of our listeners, this is a perfect thing to do on a day off too, when you're just like, I have nothing going on today. I'm going to, check Schwab. I'm going to sign up and make sure I'm available and check to see if there's anyone that needs my help, because gosh, we know in this business, when you're not working, you're probably not earning income. And so this is a great way to earn some income, get experience, and just stay busy. Staying busy is so important. So I absolutely am a huge fan, and I really support you guys, and I'm excited to watch you continue to grow. And I'm going to introduce it to our 800 agents who absolutely need it, because we're doing it through a pretty inefficient way as well, which is agent goes to our Facebook group, which is just for our brokers, and says, "Hey, I need a blah blah blah. I need a showing, and here's what I'm willing to pay." And yeah, people do respond usually, but it might take a couple hours. It might take a few
Right.
moments, a few minutes. It's not predictable, and it's not really all that reliable, because how many people are really going in and checking a certain Facebook group all day, every day? I mean, I don't even check our Facebook group several times a day, and I'm
Right.
one of the administrators on it. And so I know if I'm not doing it, our agents aren't living and dying by our Facebook group either, but that's the best way they know to communicate with our agents right now. And so this is a really a great alternative that allows you just more flexibility. You can get things done faster and for a really super reasonable price. I love it. So
Well,
everyone go out and visit.
we got a brokerage solution too. So what basically the brokerage solution within it is we created a group, right? Much
Mm,
like you have your Facebook group, and all the requests go to people within that group before it would go out to the general public. So we give them a 10-minute lead before it would go out to any other agents. And if somebody's like, hey, I want to keep mine just totally closed, we can do that, but it works best. We've got some really big brokerages that are doing this in Denver, down in Miami, in Tennessee, that, their whole office is signed up on it. And, it makes it a little bit more efficient. But if nobody picks it up, it still gets picked up by somebody. And that's really what they
yeah.
want.
And that's really smart too, because if you did say, well, I want, I want to find somebody that'll do the showing, but ideally it would be somebody from my own office, which just helps with
Of
continuity
course.
and makes it a little bit easier to explain
Yep.
to a customer. So there are brokerage solutions. So if you are a managing broker, or if you have a firm, and you have a lot of agents where this stuff comes up, and if you have more than, I would say, 50 agents, this is something that you probably need, or maybe even less than that. I'm just picked that number out at random, but I know we have 800 agents and we definitely need it. So we'll be reaching out to learn
And
more.
it's
But
free.
everyone,
I'm not
yeah,
even going to charge you anything for it. It's not like it's like
wonderful. Well,
no problem.
we're big fans, and so everyone go out and check out Showami. That's SHOWAMI.com. We support it. We love it. We love anything that you built a better mousetrap, and I love people who go out and do that. And this is an industry where there's a million different technology providers all competing in various spaces, and I haven't yet seen this particular solution. And I always love seeing people, innovators, who come up with like a really cool idea. It's something that I wish I would have come up with, but you did, and I applaud you for it. So everyone, go visit Showami, and I want to thank our Matt, on behalf of our audience, for spending time with us today, talking about Showami and just sort of how to think about your real estate business as a business. Think of it as a CEO, because you're a worker bee most of the time in this business, and that's okay. But think about, how do I remove some of the worker bee status from my official title so that I can do more with the business, and Shwami's a good help with that. So thanks, Matt. And on behalf of Matt and myself, we want to thank our audience for continuing to listen and support our show. Easiest way to help us continue to grow: just tell one friend. Think of one other real estate professional that could benefit from hearing from this interviews, like the great one we just did with Matt, and send them a link to our website. Best, easiest way to listen to our show. It's keepingitrealpod.com. This is, anyone who's maybe not even a podcast listener, they can stream every episode right there. Or if they are a podcast listener, just have them pull up a podcast app and search for Keeping It Real and hit that subscribe button. Matt, thank you so much. And we will see everybody on the next episode.
Thanks, DJ.